From a basketball coaching perspective, something really interesting happened this NBA season. There was an offensive concept that quickly gained attention around the league, and the concept was first introduced to the NBA by the Memphis Grizzlies last October. The concept is incredibly simple. On a drive, everyone moved the direction of the drive. Now, this concept is seen as unusual. Here's what Draymond Green said about the Grizzlies offense earlier this season.
Our coaching staff did a great job of preparing us for it. They came right out the gate. I was just telling CD, they came right out the gate and was like, yo, what they're doing is weird.
What was so weird about their offense?
Like if one guy drives right, the whole thing moves right.
And the thing is, this movement concept produced positive results for Memphis and their 6th ranked offense. And over the course of the season, elements of the concept spread throughout the league. So in this video, I break down this movement concept in detail. Let's get to it. Let's first start with Memphis's driving game. So here, Wells drives left, and everyone is going to move the direction of the drive. So everyone moves left. Pippen moves left to fill behind the drive, Bane and Aldama move left, and Aldama moving left essentially pushes Edey to also move left and cut from the corner. So around the drive, everyone operates on a wheel. That's the idea. And here, Porter Jr. is ball watching, which allows Bane to get an open 3. As we watch the play again, you can see the value of organized movement, because if Bane moves left but Aldama stands still, Bane would just run into Aldama. But because everyone is connected, Bane got an open shot while Aldama got to the corner. On this play, as soon as Morant begins to drive left, Jackson Jr. moves left, and this movement is called a slide away because on the drive, Jackson is sliding away from the ball. Now, here the defender one pass away is Jaylen Brown, and this defender is often doing one of two things. He is often ball watching, or this defender will often help in the gap to defend the drive, and that's what Brown does here. And so the slide away is a great counter to gap help, and here Jackson gets an open 3. The Grizzlies got a ton of slide away 3s this year, and here Jackson hits another. Now, very quickly, teams caught on to what Memphis was doing and scouted them. So on this drive right, Bane is sliding away, Jackson Jr. is moving right, and by the way, this is called a weak side corner cut. And here, the Rockets have it scouted, so they take away the relocations. Thompson sticks with Bane, and Eason takes away the cut. But Memphis is fine with this, because now Kennard has a big gap to drive through, as the relocations are occupying the help defenders, and Kennard gets a layup. The slide away and weak side corner cut combo makes a lot of sense, because the player one pass away is moving away from the ball and staying spaced, and the cutter is cutting behind the defense. This pattern naturally creates space for the drive, which is what happened here. So we've talked about the slide away and the weak side corner cut. Now let's get to a few other key movements. The next one is the fill behind. So here, Pippen drives right, and Jackson Jr. is going to move right and fill behind the drive. And this gives Pippen the option to use a controlled reverse pivot and find Jackson on the fill behind for the open 3. As we watch the play again, it makes sense why Jackson was so open. So first, Sharp is guarding Jackson. And on the drive, if Pippen skips it to the corner, it'd be Sharp's job to rotate to the corner. So on the drive, Sharp rotates to the level of the ball. This is a common defensive rotation, and the fill behind counters it, which is why Jackson was open. I like how the fill behind gives the driver another option. On this play, Wells drives left, and he could force up a contested layup, but he knows a teammate is going to fill behind. So, Wells uses a reverse pivot and plays off 2 feet. By filling behind, Bane is creating an easy passing angle for Wells, and Bane is creating separation from his defender. This was a good possession for Memphis. As we watch the play again, it's It's also worth noting that as Wells drives left, Kennard will move left to get all the way to the corner, but he does not automatically cut. The Grizzlies would weak side corner cut, but Kennard is on the strong side and one pass away, so a corner cut isn't triggered here. The strong side corner cut doesn't work as well because the cutter and the driver would be right on top of each other. The next movement worth noting is the dunker baseline cut. So here, Jackson drives, and if Edey simply stays where he's at in the dunker, he'd be getting in the way. But Edey follows the rule. Everyone move the direction of the drive. Jackson is driving right, so Edey moves right along the baseline to the other side of the rim. This is the dunker baseline cut. Here, Washington loses Edey, and it's 2 points. This cut is important because it creates space for the drive. Here, Pippen drives to the right side of the rim, and Huff's defender is in position to help. But Huff cuts along the baseline, and while Huff doesn't score here, Huff brings his defender away from the drive. So now, Pippen has space on the right side to operate. Okay, let's talk a bit about how Memphis attacks on baseline drives. Now, on a baseline drive where there is 5-out spacing, their approach was pretty standard. Here, there are 5 guys spaced beyond the 3-point line, and as Bane drives baseline, this is what they wanted. The opposite corner is going to hold, because on a baseline drive, you want that corner filled. They want the opposite wing to 45 cut, and this is a common cut you see. Here, the top stays on top, and here, Huff is on the right wing, and he's going to fill behind and get to the corner. That's the blueprint, and the 45 cut is great because on a baseline drive, defenders tend to turn their heads and look at the ball. And here Clark scores on the 45 cut. What's more unique is how they moved on baseline drives when they had 4-out spacing. So here Huff is in the dunker spot, so they have 4-out spacing, and as Pippen drives right along the baseline, Huff is going to move to his right and get to the corner. Kennard moves right to get to the wing, and Aldama 45 cuts. And here, Huff gets an open 3. Now as we watch the play again, imagine this. On the drive, Huff stayed near the paint, and Kennard and Aldama just stayed where they were. That's fine, but it lets Charlotte rotate and execute their shell defense drill they've practiced 100 times. Because when teams practice shell defense, the offensive players don't move. So by moving the direction of the drive, Memphis takes Charlotte out of their comfort zone. And here, Charlotte gets confused. Also, on this play, if Huff just stays put, or maybe flashes middle, there'd be no room for a 45 cut. It would just be too crowded inside. So Huff moving to the corner is important if you want the 45 cut. Here's another. Aldama drives baseline, and you may be thinking, well, what if the player in the dunker is a big who can't shoot? Well, we'll get to that soon. But here, Huff can shoot, so he moves to the corner, and Smart is near the wing, so he takes the 45 cut. Now let's talk about how Memphis integrated non-shooting centers into their driving game, and in particular, how they integrated Zach Edey. And it's pretty simple. Memphis typically wanted to keep Edey near the paint. So here, Wells drives baseline, and usually the guy in the dunker would get to the corner. But here that player is Edey, and Edey is a non-shooter, so that wouldn't make much sense. Instead, here Edey circles into the paint, and with Edey inside, you don't need Pippen to 45 cut. The offense isn't getting as much movement here, but this time, the defense blows an assignment and Edey gets a layup. On this play, there is a drive middle. Edey makes a dunker baseline cut, and Smart will move left and weak corner cut. Now, as the play continues, typically the player in Edey's spot would continue to the corner, and Smart would take Edey's spot in the dunker. This is the idea of everyone moving on a wheel. But here, Edey will stay in the dunker, and Smart is going to run by Edey and fill the corner. Now conceptually, this is not ideal, with 2 players crossing paths like this. But To incorporate Edey, this is what Memphis did. Smart can shoot, so he gets to the corner. Now, Smart hit a 3 on that last play, but overall, I think one of the better arguments against moving the direction of the drive is that this rule is not the cleanest fit for teams who play a traditional non-shooting center, and once in a while, things got a bit clunky for Memphis. Here, for example, Jackson drives left, Edey moves left, and LaRavia makes his weak corner cut. And here, you'll see Jackson try to make a late pass to LaRavia, but notice Edey, he's still near the paint. He didn't continue to the corner, so now there's just not a lot of space inside for a pass to LaRavia, particularly since the pass is late. Edey is in the way, and LaRavia doesn't score. Here, the weak corner cut did not pay off. That being said, plays like that didn't happen too often, and ultimately, even with Edey, the Grizzlies made their driving game work. Memphis finished with the 6th ranked offense, and while that doesn't necessarily prove their driving principles were amazing, it is something. Next, let's talk about how the concept, moving the direction of the drive, spread throughout the NBA this season. But first, let's look at this play from the Grizzlies. So we haven't talked about pick and roll yet, but Memphis applied their movement principles to ball screens as well. So here, Bane and Edey are running a standard pick and roll, and as Bane comes off the pick to his right, the 3 players not involved in the pick are going to move right. Here, there are 2 players on the side Bane is dribbling towards, so you're going to see the slide away and weak corner cut combo, and here, Vince Williams gets a corner 3. In the pick and roll, the slide away and weak corner cut concept became very common in the NBA this past season. Teams like Memphis and Cleveland used it early in the season, and then other teams started using it as well. Here the Heat used this concept. So first off, drop coverage is very common in the NBA, and here Nurkic is in a drop. And versus drop, this concept frequently results in a slide away corner 3, as the defender one pass away would frequently look to help in the gap. But what happens here is also common. Here, the 2 defenders are occupied by the relocations, and they don't help at all. This allows Robinson to turn the corner versus drop coverage. So lots of teams started moving the direction of the drive and pick and roll this season. In terms of moving on drives in general, even when there was no pick, Memphis and Cleveland both did it. Memphis was much more diligent about it than Cleveland, but the Cavs did it some too. Here, for instance, there is no ball screen, and Cleveland's Evan Mobley drives left. That triggers everyone to move left. As we begin to wrap up, the backstory here is interesting. 7 years ago at St. Joseph's College of Maine, someone named Noah LaRoche installed the principle move the direction of the drive. St. Joseph's is a D3 school, and they destroyed defenses that season by moving the direction of the drive. This season, LaRoche was an assistant coach for Memphis. He brought the principle to the Grizzlies and thus to the NBA, and other teams took notice. So I can't help but wonder, is this the future? Will it someday become common for teams at all levels of basketball to move the direction of the drive? I guess we'll find out.